You're not crazy. The country you grew up in isn't the country you live in anymore. And whichever side has been telling you what to do about that, that side is selling you something. Now, I want to spend the next 18 minutes or so talking about something almost nobody is going to talk about honestly, because the honest version of it makes the whole machine angry. And both sides of this machine have a reason to make sure that you never hear what I'm about to say. So let's take the lid off this box. Like these past few years, something has shifted seismically. You can just feel it. Conversations that used to be easy have gotten way harder. Family dinners are landmines now. Friendships that lasted 20 years, they're just quietly falling apart over things that didn't even matter 5 years ago. And here's what's not registering to our brains. The neighborhood looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. The country still works most days, but you can't shake the feeling that something underneath has come loose. Like you went to bed in one country years ago and woke up in a different one today. And that feeling has a name. Polling people have been measuring it for years. About 6 in 10 Americans say they don't identify with what this country has become. Whoa. And more than half say they feel like a stranger in their own country. Now, here's the part most people miss. Because that feeling isn't just on one side of the aisle. The polling shows it's on both sides. Conservatives feel it and progressives feel it. They blame completely different forces for it, but the ache underneath it is the same. Same homesickness, same disorientation, same sense that the country has slipped away while they were trying to just live their lives. Friends, I'm not going to ask you today to pick a side. I'm not here to recruit you for anything. And by the end of this conversation, I want you to walk out knowing what you're actually feeling, where it comes from, and who's profiting from making this worse. And also how the way out is older and simpler than anyone in your feed wants you to know. There is a way through this that isn't war. And that's what I want to give you. So why does nobody on the loud channels tell you that both sides are feeling this same thing? Think about this. If you're trying to get someone to fight, the absolute last thing that you can let them know is that the person on the other side feels exactly the same way they do. Because the moment that you know that, you're going to start asking some pretty dangerous questions. I mean, if they're not the ones who took my country from me, if they're missing their country just like I am, then who is causing this? Who actually benefits from the country feeling broken? Who's making money off the noise? And once you start asking that question, the whole story that you've been told just crumbles in your hands. So they make sure you never ask it. There are people who have been writing about this for a long time, and they're not pastors and preachers, and they don't get nearly enough press. They're just smart people who've been watching what's happening in modern life. I want to give you 4 of them. I want to hit them really fast. There's a philosopher. Her name is Hannah Arendt. She lost her own country in the 1930s. She had to flee Germany, and she spent the rest of her life writing about what it feels like to lose the world that you knew. And she said something that held up for 75 years so far. Modernity doesn't just dislocate refugees. It dislocates everyone. You don't feel like a stranger because something went wrong with you. You feel like a stranger because that's what modern life produces. There's a sociologist named Robert Bella, and he said something else worth knowing, and that is that America and Americans have stopped sharing a moral language. We can argue about what's right for me, or we can say what I prefer, Or we could say, like, what makes me happy, but we can't argue anymore about what's good. The vocabulary is basically gone. So when you try to talk about the country at your family dinner table, it isn't that the other person disagrees with you as much as it is that you literally don't have the words anymore that mean the same things to each other in order to have the discussion. There's a political scientist named Yuval Levin, and said that institutions that we used to count on have been completely hollowed out. Congress, the church, the media, the universities, they used to form people, and now they're platforms that people stand on to perform. And that's why nothing institutional feels load bearing anymore, flat out because it isn't. And a psychologist named Jonathan Haidt has been saying for 10 years that we're watching a whole generation grow up without the moral and physical infrastructure that used to make people steady. The phone is part of it. The decline of in-person life, face-to-face, is part of it. The loss of shared stories is part of it. We're not imagining this disorientation. It is now completely measurable. Four very different thinkers, different fields, different politics, and every one of them is naming the same thing from just a different angle. The floor that used to hold people up, shared language, shared institutions, shared physical life, the everyday infrastructure of meaning, that floor has come apart underneath us. And that is the diagnosis. The ground is genuinely gone. The strangeness you feel isn't a fantasy, it's a reading on something real. But here is what they are hiding from you. But it's right there in front of you, and you'll see it once you start looking at it. The reason you feel torn apart is because somebody is tearing you apart on purpose, because they benefit when you stay torn. Look, I want you to sit with that for a second, because I think most of you already know it. You feel it in your gut every time you open your phone or you walk away angrier than you started. You feel it every single time a headline pops up and your jaw tightens before you've even read it. You feel it every time some person in your family who used to be reasonable starts repeating things that you know they wouldn't have said 5 years ago. That isn't an accident. That is literally the model. The machine, purely diagnostic. Both sides indicted equally. And let me say this as plainly as I know how to say something. The people on both sides who are screaming at you don't even need to win the argument. Their only goal is to make and keep you mad. Because if you are mad enough, you'll keep watching. You'll keep voting against the other team. You'll keep donating. Keep sharing. Keep sharing those posts that make you feel sick. And I know you can feel it. Your anger is the asset for these people. Your anger pays their bills. Your anger keeps them in office. Your anger feeds the algorithm that pays the platform, that pays the consultant, that funds the next campaign. You are not a citizen to these people. You are a revenue stream. And friends, this is true on both sides. I am not picking one team here. This is the whole machine. Fox News needs you to be afraid of the left, and CNN needs you to be afraid of the right. The politician on the right raises money by warning you about the politician on the left. And the politician on the left raises money by warning you about the politician on the right. Same fight, same script, same revenue model, two different colors. You are being played. And so am I. And you're not crazy for feeling like the country is being torn apart. The country is being torn apart, but it isn't being torn apart by the people on the other side of the aisle from you. It is being torn apart by a machine that figured out a long time ago that an angry, anxious, divided population is the most profitable population in human history. And here's the thing about the machine: the country isn't as broken as they need you to believe it is. Look, there are real problems. Real things are changing. Some of the changes are hard. I don't want to pretend otherwise here. It is difficult. But the catastrophe, the end of the world, the other side is destroying everything. We're at the brink of the end. And all this framing, you hear it every single day. That catastrophe is mostly manufactured because ordinary problems don't move the donation needle. Ordinary problems don't drive engagement. Ordinary problems don't keep you watching. Catastrophes do. So everything has to be a catastrophe. Every election has to be the most important election in history. Every news cycle has to be unprecedented, breaking news, shocking revelation. Every disagreement has to be an existential threat. They inflate the crisis because the inflated crisis is what pays them. And then we, as the people, start to create the problem that they're telling us to create. Oh my goodness. I want to tell you what breaks the cycle. And I'm going to come back to this at the end of the conversation, but I want you to start thinking about it now. The cycle breaks the moment two people on opposite sides of the fight walk towards each other instead of away. And not to argue, but to listen. The machine cannot survive that conversation. And that's why they work so hard to make sure you never have it. But first, I want to give you the older answer that the church already had. That's right. This isn't just a current issue. Without this answer, walking across the aisle is just, well, nice. But with it, walking across the aisle is what Christians have always done. Let me show you. Here's where this gets maybe older than you think. 1,600 years ago, the city of Rome fell. People panicked, and in the middle of the collapse, a bishop sat down and wrote a book named The Answer the Modern Church Has Forgotten. He said this, and I'll paraphrase: "No earthly nation was ever the kingdom. Rome wasn't. America isn't. Your strangeness in your own country isn't a crisis. It's the oldest signal in the Christian story. You're a resident alien, and you always were." Now, let me unpack that because it's the heart of this whole conversation. In 410 AD, the city of Rome fell to an invading army. Rome was the eternal city, the center of the known world for 1,000 years. Pagans blamed the Christians, and they said that abandoning the old gods for this new religion had broken the empire. Christians were terrified because the empire that had finally given them peace was now visibly disintegrating. And in the middle of all of that, a bishop named Augustine wrote a book called The City of God. He said there are two cities: the earthly city built on people loving themselves, and the heavenly city built on people loving God. They are mingled together everywhere. And here's the part that mattered then and matters now: no earthly nation, including the one that had just made Christianity legal, was ever the city of God. Rome wasn't the kingdom. Christianity is not finally about Rome or about America or about any country that has ever been built. He said Christians could love their country, could serve it, could pray for it, could even defend it, but they were never supposed to confuse it with the kingdom. The Christian's deepest citizenship was always somewhere else. And here's the part that connects everything I've been saying. The early church refused to be used by the empire. They wouldn't burn a pinch of incense to Caesar. And not because Caesar was always wrong. Sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't. But because once you let the empire tell you who your enemy is, you've already lost. The early Christians knew they had brothers and sisters on every side of every political fight in the empire. So they refused to fight the empire's war. They lived as resident aliens. They served the city, prayed for the city, and refused to be conscripted into the city's hatreds. That's the answer the church already had. Peter wrote a letter in the first century to Christians scattered across the hostile empire, and he opened it like this: to God's chosen people who are living as foreigners. He didn't call them displaced. He didn't call them persecuted. He called them foreigners, resident aliens. It was the church's official self-description from the beginning. Now, please listen carefully. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying Christians shouldn't care about their country. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote. I'm not saying you shouldn't be involved. Augustine literally said Christians should pray for the welfare of the city. The prophet Jeremiah said the same thing to the Jews in exile: settle in, build, plant gardens, pray for the city. And that's what he said. What I'm saying is this: the movement that says the Christian's job is to seize political power and restore the country to its proper form, that movement is asking for something the New Testament never asked for. And the movement that says displacement isn't real, that the people feeling it deserve it for being on the wrong side of history, that movement is asking you to lie about what you actually feel. Both sides are reaching for the same prize from opposite directions, and both are trying to get you to fight to make the country feel like home again, and neither of them are going to deliver because neither of them can. Because the country was never supposed to be your home. In the deepest sense, the kingdom is. And until you know that, you're going to keep getting pulled into someone else's war. So what do you actually do with this? Two things, one posture and an action. Ready? The posture is the older Christian answer. You're a resident alien. You can love the country, vote for your conscience, work for the welfare of the city. Just never confuse it with the kingdom. You hold all of it with open hands because your citizenship was never finally here. The action is the one the machine doesn't want you to take. You just walk across. And I mean that as literally as I can say it. The next time you feel that hot rise in your chest about someone on the other side, the relative at Thanksgiving, or the neighbor with the wrong yard sign, or the coworker who said the thing, you walk over to them, not to win, not to convert, to listen. And you ask one real question. You listen to that answer without rehearsing your rebuttal. You let them see you as a person before they see you as a team. I want you to set within yourself that they are allowed and it is okay for them to think opposite of you. And here's what will happen if you do this. There's a chance. There is a chance that they'll do the same thing back. Sure, maybe not the first time, and maybe not the second time, but eventually, I promise you, they will if you continue with that posture, because they are as tired of this as you are. They feel the exact same ache you feel. They want out of the machine as well. And I promise you that one action alone will help them get off that hamster wheel. It works. That conversation, the conversation between two people who used to be enemies and just decided not to be anymore, that conversation is what breaks the country open in the right direction. Not a movement, not a campaign, not a candidate, a conversation. The one they've spent billions of dollars trying to make sure you would never have. You. Look, this is how the early church changed an empire that hated them. They didn't seize it. They didn't fight it. They lived inside it as resident aliens. Strange, generous, undivided, refusing to hate the people that the empire told them to hate. And over 300 years, the empire changed. Not because they captured it, but because they refused to be captured by it. You are being asked to do the same thing. Be undividable. Refuse to hate the people that you've been told to hate. Walk across. I know what I'm asking. I'm asking you to give up something that sometimes feels really good. Anger feels like clarity. Picking a team feels like you're belonging. Watching the other side lose feels like winning. But I'm asking you to pull those down. Not because they're not real, but because they're costing you more than they're giving you. They're costing you your neighbor, your relative, your peace, your soul. That is, if you keep going at this long enough. Ache you came in with today, the strangeness, the sense that the country isn't your country anymore. I didn't offer you or ask you to pick up a sword today. You walked through it, and you're walking out steadier than you walked in. What feels like a crisis turns out to be the oldest signal in the Christian story. You're not the problem. You're not even broken. You're a resident alien. You've been one the whole time. And the cure for what's killing the country isn't another war. It's not that one side wins and another side loses. The cure, it's you. Walking across the aisle to one person this week with just one real question. I hope today, and I believe, you're leaving better than I found you. Think clearly and live faithfully. There are hard things all around us. And the question isn't, will it get to me? But what will I become because of it? Let's navigate it together with grace and grit and come out hopeful. Grace with grit. I'll see you on the next one.